All right, today we're doing a little video on my 2007 Mega Cab. Go through how I got it, when I got it. I bought the truck in end of June 2014. I bought it, had an engine fire, and I ended up spending the next 3 or 4 months throwing every paycheck that I had, buying parts, needing to get it running, and finally got it running in October of that year. So here I had a 2007 Mega Cab with 150,000 miles on it that had a clean title, and I had 13 or 14 grand in it. So I was happy with it. It was my first diesel truck, and I pretty much, that's where it all started. Once I got it running, obviously, you know us, can't leave anything stock. So I had a Steed Speed manifold and a Fleece Cheetah put on it, and tunes. That was the first turbo that I put on it, and downed it and made low 600 horsepower. And a few weeks after I got it running, I took it to a dirt drag, and I won an air dog at dirt drags, and we went from there. So after that, I put a On3 Performance added turbo kit on, which is a 77 millimeter T4 foot turbo that bolted up to the Fleece Cheetah, and ran it at that power level, which was, I think after that it made close to 700 horsepower, and that was also with 100% nozzles. Those injectors lasted me for 6 to 8 months before the stock bodies started having high return rates on them, and I needed to bite the bullet and put injectors in it. So at that time I put 125% injectors in it and a Fleece PowerFlow 750, and we made low 800s, and my truck was at that power level for a year and a half, 2 years roughly. So after that, obviously the next level is I wanted more power, because you can never have enough horsepower. So I sold the stock motor that was in my truck, and I bought a 6.7 motor. I put a D&J machine end girdle in with 9/16 main studs, Waggler billet rods, 9/16 head studs, fire ring, a D&J stage 1 head. The only thing I didn't do was I didn't sleeve it. I wish I would have at the time. And then when I also had built the motor, I bought 400% injectors and a 14 mil street pump. I had ordered a set of 472, 488 compounds. Long story short, those never showed up, and after running it for a year, I ended up cracking the block on the built motor. After that, I was kind of tired of dumping money into it, so I ended up selling that motor after replacing the block on it, and I decided to do this thing called adulting. Not very fun. It's still fun though. And I downsized to 100% injectors, kept the 14 mil CP3, and I went to a Tater-built 6767 stock appearing turbo, which is what's on the truck now. I initially was going to put a stock motor back into my truck after breaking the built motor, and I ended up getting a really good deal on D&J rods and a Midgets Performance bolt-in girdle. So I have the basic necessities that I can make 1,000 to 1,100 horsepower if I want to down the road, without having to pull the motor back out. So at the power level that I'm at now, the highest I've dynoed is 905 horsepower. Still a fun street truck. It's just not as hard on transmission and engine parts and things like that. So suspension wise, I have gotten a lot of questions on Facebook forums and Messenger and things like that on what I did on my suspension. 2 or 3 years ago, I liked the look of a lower truck, and I didn't have the money at the time to do it 100% proper, which is doing an air ride kit and things like that. So I ended up in the front, I cut 1.5 coils off the coil springs. That's about as low as you can go on a stock suspension truck without the oil pan hitting the axle. In doing so, I had to cut the majority of my bump stops off so that I still had 2 or 3 inches of suspension travel. Then in the rear, I removed 2 spacers. I removed the overload spring and 1 leaf. I also have 2-inch drop shackles. That evened out the front, or that evened out the rear to match the front. The rear is technically 3/8 of an inch higher in the rear than it is the front. So as far as lowering it, I had the cost of the shackles and the cost of new U-bolts in lowering it. So my wheel and tire setup is 2212 American Force Quantums with a -51 offset, and they are wrapped in Hankook Ventus ST 305 45 22 tires. And then also with lowering the truck, obviously I can't hook a trailer to it without the truck squatting really bad, so I added a set of airbags. I can't use the normal 3rd gen airbags since the 3rd gen style airbags mount under the frame to the axle. With my truck being so low, it just bottomed out. The airbag acted like a bump stop. So I ended up getting a 2nd gen airbag kit and welded it to the outside of my frame. So with putting a roll pan bumper on my truck, I had to obviously cut the factory hitch out of it, and that lost me a Reese hitch. And I still wanted to be able to pull trailers and sled pull occasionally if I wanted to. So I ended up spending a Saturday welding a hitch in, and it's pretty neat concept. Just have a little bracket that I welded up to mount my license plate to that I can pull out, and every time I want to hook to a trailer, just slides in and out and put a pin in it, and it's easy as that. So underneath the truck, I have a set of Firepunk traction bars, and then also control arms. I had the factory control arms for 4 of the years that I had the truck. The bearings in them finally started going out, and Cody made me a set of adjustable control arms for the front if I need to adjust with lowering it, which I ended up just leaving them at stock height or stock length, since that works the best with my wheel and tire setup with minimal rubbing. So the first year that we went to Ultimate Callout Challenge in 2016, that was in the spring, we took the northern route through Nebraska, Wyoming, and out there they use sand to get traction on snow on the roads. And we were driving in a convoy, had Levon's 2016, and at the time Rick Fox had a 2009 Mega Cab, and then also my truck, and I was in the tail of the convoy. And driving through Wyoming with all the sand, I got rock chips all over the front of my truck and all the rockers. It was bad enough I had to replace a windshield, and it pretty much ate all the paint off of the front of my truck. The winter before that, I had noticed I had started getting some rust bubbles, and so I decided to get my truck painted. I believe it was August of 2016. I had the whole truck repainted, had the rust fixed, had the bedsides replaced, and I also added a cow hood at the time. 3 years later, for the most part, the paint has held up exceptionally well. There's a few things here and there that need to be fixed yet, but for the most part, I'm pleased with it. So after I got my truck running, obviously Firepunk as a shop, we enjoy drag racing. I got my truck running in 2014. I believe it was July 4th of 2015, I took it to the very first drag race that I ever competed in, and I believe that was Fleece's Summer Showdown. I was running 12-1, 12-2 at the time, and had pretty competitive races. I ended up, I believe I ended up in the semifinals of that race, and ever since that race, I was hooked. I have done many a passes in it. I have a stack of time slips. I'm guessing anywhere between 300 or 400 time slips of all the passes that I've made in this. 2016, I was second in points in 770, and then 2017, I raced in ET class and in 770 class. I was never good enough to be the winner. I was second loser 2 years in a row, yay me. And in ET, I believe I was 5th or 6th in 2017. And then in 2018, I started racing the Firepunk Save the Racks S10. I don't race this one as much as I used to. I miss it sometimes, but driving the S10 has been an awesome experience. You learn a bunch of new things, and it takes a while for things to slow down in the driver's seat of it.